Hello and welcome to the latest edition of Here for Good, where we explore how transformational leaders create a positive impact on the world around them. Throughout history, inspirational leaders and organizations have always used the power of words to connect with emotion, galvanize communities, and enlist others in causes for change and good. At Virtua Health, we are changing the way people think and talk about health and well-being. So it is our privilege to tee up meaningful conversations with engaging social catalysts and thought leaders. Please welcome our host, Dennis Pullin, President and CEO of Virtua Health, as he sparks today's exciting conversation.
My guest today is Patti Winegar, who is the dynamic CEO of SPM Marketing and Communications, an award-winning healthcare agency in the suburbs of Chicago focused on positioning and promoting health systems across the country through ethical communications. When Patti joined SPM in 2006, she brought 25 years of experience from the world's largest consumer agencies, DDB and Leo Burnett, where she helped build brands for Fortune 500 companies like State Farm, Unilever, Nestle Purina, General Mills, and Dell. She has since focused her significant consumer experience into healthcare. When Patti's not running her agency or her household, where she's a wife and a mom of 3 young adults, she's volunteering and championing the Off the Street Club. This organization serves more than 3,000 kids from the most crime-ridden neighborhoods of Chicago. Not only does she and her family provide a circle of connection, friendship, and support for these inspiring kids, but also the entire agency has joined in hosting and tutoring and raising funds and support for this worthwhile community cause. Patti is also a longtime board member and fundraiser for the Illinois chapter of the Juvenile Diabetes Foundation, where she has personally helped raise over $1 million over the last 20 years. And since caring is a family matter, Patti's entire crew is involved with Common Hope, a charity that helps children in Guatemala attend school, visit the doctor, and live in clean, safe homes. So when I say Patti is here for good, Patti is truly here for good. Welcome, Patti.
Thank you, Dennis. I appreciate you having me on today. And congratulations to you in your recent honor as the most admired CEO.
Thank you. I'm sure they only interviewed my family, but I will take it. I am truly excited to have this conversation with you today. You and I first met when we were working to build our own brand here at Virtua Health, and your organization played such an important role to that. But tell me a little more about SPM and how you became to be the CEO.
Well, you had a lot of that in the introduction. What I would add to that is our focus is to help consumers make better choices about their healthcare decisions. Certainly, healthcare is confusing. And if you don't have the background in healthcare, it's difficult to choose. So we help inform people in those decisions, and those decisions that can improve or even save their life. As far as my getting to SPM in 2006, I joined the S, the P, and the M were still here, and I joined as Chief Operating Officer at that time. And SPM has always enjoyed an incredible culture, and I helped bring some rigor and infrastructure to a rapidly growing organization. In 2011, the M, Larry Margolis, and I bought the agency from the S&P, and we were seeing radical transformation in the healthcare industry. And so we really doubled down in our consumer understanding with more proprietary studies. And in 2018, realizing we would need significant capital, we brought in a private equity partner in Corridor Capital in Los Angeles. And at that time, Larry stepped back a bit, and I became the CEO.
Well, great. So I know that we benefited greatly from your experience around consumer product goods. Why is the understanding of consumers, not just the patient, so important in healthcare? What is it that sort of helps to make that connection. Why should individuals like myself better understand consumer behavior as opposed to just thinking about patients?
Well, that's a great question, Dennis. And at the end of the day, and you listed a number of the categories that I'd worked in, and those are very, very different categories, as is healthcare. But we bring ourselves to every decision we make. Every purchase decision we make is a reflection of our own attitudes, our beliefs, our behaviors, our values. And that helps us make decisions every day in what we're going to purchase or what service we're going to require. And the same is absolutely true for healthcare.
So obviously, I mentioned that we worked with you and your organization to really help us arrive at our own North Star about being here for good. Tell me a little bit of how you personally live this notion of being here for good, being about something greater than yourself. You know, I know you have some special causes that I mentioned in the intro, but tell me how you became so deeply involved.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head that it really has to do with doing something that's greater than yourself. And I was lucky that I had parents who really instilled that at a young age. My parents both grew up in the Depression, and I was raised to be grateful. And my parents would constantly remind my sister and me that there are a lot of people that don't even have the basics. Parents who love them, a house, food, education. And my mother was fond of saying, find a need and fill it. And that's what I observed from her.
So your mom really was that role model for you in terms of volunteering and giving back. So I know that you often try and involve others in your passion, your family, your church, your own agency colleagues. Have you found them to be willing partners, or have they come kicking and screaming?
Well, it's funny. It probably depends who you ask, but it's a bit of a
and
running...
in what day you asked them, right?
Right. And it's a bit of a running joke with my friends and my family that they would tell me that I'm pretty persuasive when I bring an opportunity to them. And I would tell you, I just hang out with really great people. And it isn't kicking and screaming. I think if you find what really motivates people, if you find a cause that you know your friend or your family member will connect with, it's very easy. And that's really what I've seen.
So the Off the Street Club, what inspired you to become involved in that? Maybe share a little more about what that is.
Sure. The Off the Street Club is funded completely by the advertising community in Chicago. And it is the oldest Boys and Girls Club in Chicago. Every year, their largest fundraiser is hosted by one agency. And when you volunteer, as I did when my previous agency was running the luncheon, the first thing you do is you visit the club. And that was life-changing for me. From the second I walked into the club, these kids are hugging me and laughing and smiling and just loving the fact that they have other adults who care about them. And I left the club that day thinking, I had 3 little kids at the time, my kids need to get involved with this. And that's where the idea was hatched, that I had talked to the 7 amazing staff who run the Off the Street Club. And I said, my kids don't see diversity. And they said the same thing was true for their kids.
Wow.
And so we started with a bowling party in 1996. 10 of their elementary kids, 10 of ours, and a handful of parents in Western Springs where I live. And the kids were a little bit hesitant at first. They walked in a little bit shy, but in 2 hours, a miracle occurs.
Was it because of the unknown and just not having been exposed to that type of thing?
I think for sure they might have noticed color when they walked in the door. But when they were leaving, they didn't see color. They had met new friends, and they found that they just met children just like them.
Are you able to maintain a connection with many of the kids once do they sort of age out of the particular club, or is there an opportunity to sort of follow them as they enter into high school and college and so forth?
Some you can. There is sometimes the kids move out of the neighborhood or leave leave the club, my kids did develop some relationships. In fact, we had sleepovers at my house, and they remained, buddies for years. And then we do see some of these kids that do go on to college and do amazing things. So they're just like our kids. They just start with really significant challenges.
Wow. Well, I think that is such a great cause, and I think it's something that can be so impactful to the kids that are exposed to the generosity of time and energy and spirit from others like yourself. So I just think that's a wonderful thing. I want to switch gears on you just a little bit. I'm going to talk to you about something that's sort of outside of my comfort zone and my knowledge base. Talk to me a little bit about the trials and tribulations of being a female CEO. I know you've had to develop certain personal mantras and mottos to sort of help guide you, but tell me a little bit about some of your trials in being this phenomenal CEO.
Well, I think a lot of my challenges and what I face every day are probably similar to what most CEOs face. And it starts with attracting and retaining and developing the absolute best people of your organization. And that's really twofold. You need a skill set that will help enhance the agency, but you also need to bring in people who reflect back and enhance the culture as well. The other part of that is working with clients, and Virtua is definitely a client that values partnership, and we can do our absolute best work when clients value that. So that's an important goal as CEO. As far as the female part goes, I think I don't notice that so much being a challenge for me since I've been at SPM. I'd probably say that a lot of those challenges were more in middle management and coming up through the ranks. But that's probably a topic for a whole other podcast.
But realizing that, yes, you were raising 3 kids, and as you mentioned, coming up through the ranks in your career, but also taking on the risk of being a business owner. So how do you find time to give back? It sounds like you have a pretty full plate. I mean, how do you sort of manage and juggle all of these things?
Well, first of all, I have an amazing husband, and I couldn't have had this career and traveled as much as I did and spent as much time with work as I did without Steve. And he's an architect and had the ability to stay home and not travel. So that helped immensely. In terms of charitable causes, it became a family affair. It's not as if it was a discrete thing we did. And when involved in the Off the Street Club, the parties, while they started small with just those 20 kids, they grew to to 40 kids, 60 kids, 80 kids, and my kids were part of that. Now I've long turned over those reins to younger parents, but 2 of my kids tutor at Off the Street Club. And my daughter's on the auxiliary board. So it really got baked into what we did as a family.
That's great. What about Common Hope? Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I have to give the credit to my husband. That was a cause that he got involved in with first. And it really benefits education for children in Guatemala, a third world country. And you essentially adopt a child and get them through school, but that provides support for the whole family, food as well as education. And my husband caught the bug when he went down there and, again, just saw amazing, amazing families who just had different challenges than we do in the United States. And we adopted a little boy, Juan, and took him through high school and went down for graduation. And that was my first exposure. Wow. We've since adopted 3 more kids, and each of my children now steward an individual in Guatemala. So again, it becomes a family affair that we all participate in.
I think that is great. That's something that obviously you instilled in your kids, and they're sort of paying it forward.
Right. And, I am paying it forward, perhaps, and I might have started out thinking that. But what I get so much more out of it than I give. it isn't about what I'm giving, it's what I'm getting, quite frankly. And
So,
when you see an impact, it's really exciting and inspiring.
so you say you sort of how you started out. So I'm going to take you back a bit. So tell me what you think your 18-year-old self would think about who you are today.
She would say,
I won't tell you what mine would say about me, but I want to know what 18-year-old Patti would say.
She would say, wow, you got old. And then I think she'd say, boy, you did more than I thought you could ever get done, that you actually did have it all with a husband and fabulous children and a career and making connections to the outside world that have some sort of small impact or ripple effect. So I think she'd be pretty proud of me.
Yeah, I think that's great. So philanthropy, I think, giving back, it is truly part of the value system of not only you, but your agency. What would you say to other, what I would hope to call responsible corporate citizens and folks like myself, other CEOs? How would you encourage them, or what would be your message to them in terms of doing things that are community-minded, doing things to demonstrate that they are here for good? How would you encourage them, or what would you say to encourage them to try and do some of the things that you and your agency are doing?
I think CEOs have a responsibility to introduce causes that are relevant, that they think their employee base would rally around. I think if they introduce those causes to the organization, and if they have hired a phenomenal team like we have at SPM, it just catches on from there. And in fact, SPM is very involved in Off the Street Club, and certainly I made that introduction, but it relies on lots of employees here who get a new idea. We had one of our young account managers organize a cooking class with Off the Street Club. And we've also had movie night where they've joined us for movie night. Those weren't my ideas. Those were my employees getting ideas, simply having been exposed to the club. So I think CEOs owe that to their team to put opportunity to help others.
I absolutely agree. I think role modeling behaviors that you would like to see in others are important. You mentioned your mom, when it comes to your desire and your giving back. Are there any others that have been particular role models for you that sort of helped you become the CEO that you are, help you sort of in your adoption of guiding principles? Is there a role model that just sort of comes to mind?
Well, my husband is a great role model. He also embraces doing good for organizations. In fact, he was up at 4:30 this morning because he's working on capital improvements for our historic church that's on the National Register. So I really admire that work ethic and what he gives back as well. I also have friends and who I watch what they do and what they commit for other organizations. And that inspires me too. And it reminds me, I have to keep going. I have to, keep finding other ways that I can contribute to the world. The staff at Off the Street Club, 7 people who steward the lives of these 3,000 kids that go through every year. Those people have given their lives to the club. They're an incredible inspiration to me.
Patti, I absolutely agree with you. It amazes me sometimes at the people that we can learn from and the people that can inspire us to do different things, to do more things. All you have to do sometimes is just open up your eyes enough to see. And so that's great that you find that inspiration from some of the very people that you're trying to assist and that you're trying to help. I can't tell you how wonderful it has been catching up with you and learning a little bit more about you and what inspires and what fulfills you beyond the awesome work that you do at SPM. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Dennis. And I think it's terrific that you are shedding a light on a different aspect of Virtua, a different way that you inspire others in the community and remind people that they too can make a difference beyond your job as a CEO too. So I think that's terrific that you're doing this.
Well, great. I look forward to continuing our conversation at some point and watching the many wonderful things that you and SPM provides throughout the country. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thanks, Dennis.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Here for Good. If you liked what you heard, please leave us feedback and share our podcast link with others. Until next time, be well, everyone.